want to say a special hello to everybody, and today we're talking to Charlie Finlay of Clonmore, Tullamore. Charlie worked with CIE at the Tullamore and Geashill railway stations over the period from 1967 to 2005, so almost 40 years in what one could call the most public building in Tullamore, which is the railway station. So many of us go through it so often, but we don't regard it as a public building, which it is, of course. So this talk is being done at Offaly History Centre, Bury Quay, Tullamore, and we're here with Aidan Barry, who was involved in making a recording of Charlie's recollections, and also Pádraig Siri, who's helping us with the filming of this event. And that's our centre there at Bury Quay, for those of you who don't know where we are. We're beside the old warehouse and now beside the new Aldi store, which is in progress as we speak. And that's a nice summer's day there, that second picture taken out at the National Ploughing event some years ago. And in the lower half of that photograph is our archives, Offaly Archives, which we work with the County Library in connection with to provide a permanent archive of the important material relating to County Offaly. So moving on to directly to talk about Charlie's things. First of all, Charlie's the man on the left there talking to the late Stephen McNeill, who was the president of the society here for many years and well known to a lot of you because he did a lot of running and walking at all hours of the day and night up to his death in 2016. Charlie was interviewed for the Tullamore Tribune at the time of his retirement from the railway station, and of course the nice bunch of flowers was presented to him after what I see as 38 years of service at the railway station. So, Charlie, you joined CIE then in
1967, in the summer of 67.
And what was your role in those days?
My role was at the time was in the goods store, sorting out parcels and for all the shops around, you could say, with the exception of Bor, all around the county. There was a lorry loaded up every morning for Clara and Ballycumber, Forban, Belmount, Shannon Harbour, on into Banagher.
But of course, there wasn't always lorries, Charlie, was it? Was it still horse-drawn?
Well, for the local, the Tullamore deliveries, there was 3 horses.
Oh, yes, and that was it?
It was Jack Cassidy used to do the deliveries of cigarettes, Guinness. Barney Elephant do the shops and chemists and Archie Conway was the same. He had the other horse and dray.
And how long did that last, horse-drawn?
That lasted. The last of the horses was seen in town was in 1968.
68, so just a year after you arrived.
That's right.
Well, let's just have a look then at the railway station as it was. First of all, I just want to mention that map of the county, King's County it was called then, in 1837 was before the railways, and the canal is shown on that as coming from Edenderry to Shannon Harbour, and that in fact was the main transport artery for the county for another, well, from 1800s up to 1850s as regards passengers, and for goods right up to 1960. The principal towns in the county then, for any of you who don't know, stretch from Clara to Shinrone and from Banagher over to Edenderry. And again, you have a convenient drawing of them there. And this one here is to show the rail network across the country. And as any of you who take the train from Houston Station will know, that's the head station, or the headquarters of what was the original transport railway company serving the Midlands. Houston Station was built in 1844. Now, as Charlie may tell you, there was an earlier railway station in Tullamore, which is dated back to 1854, and that was when the first line was completed from Tullamore to Portarlington. It's at the railway bridge now at Clonminch, and you can see in the background to the left there the Church of Ireland Church St. Catherine's. And that was a drawing that appeared in the Illustrated London News in 1855 to mark the export by rail from Killorn in Killy of charcoal, which was to be sent to the Crimean front to help in the war against the Russians. The old station house, as drawn then by Oliver Connolly in the 1970s, and of course the famous red bridge there over the canal, which was erected around 1858, when the second line of railway was put through from Tullamore to Athlone. That first railway station was at Clonminch, but the Buries of Charleville managed to persuade the railway company to erect a new station in 1865, and that was located at Kilcrutton, just off what is now called Cormac Street, or Charleville Parade as it was in the old days. And you can see the access to the town park in the old photograph on the left, and then you can see the railway, the station master's house as it then was, which was on the right. That was the station master's house, wasn't it, Charlie?
That was Ted O'Brien's house.
Ted O'Brien's.
Yeah. Ted kept a few pigs, and he also kept two cows and a few calves
In the yard of that house.
in the yard.
Yeah.
He used to send me down to get pig meal and calf nuts and feed for the cows as well.
Well, they're the little perks that a station master would have. And here now is the railway station itself. This is before Charlie Finlay ever joined it, about 1910. You can see the box, though, that Charlie will tell us about later, where he would have worked for a while. And some of the warehouses, Charlie, that you mentioned earlier, maybe at the back here in this old photograph.
Yes.
And the old front of the railway station is in the second postcard on the right. And we've a nice view then of all of these photographs, old and new, taken there by the Tullamore Camera Club about 10 years ago. And this is a larger view then of the railway station as it was 100 years ago. There was only one platform.
Yeah, there was no second platform until, of course, it became a main line from Galway, Westport. All the trains ran through Tullamore in 1975. In the summer of 75, Tullamore became a mainline station.
Yeah. And before that, was it the case that the Mullingar Athlone was the more important line?
That was the Athlone Mullingar line was the important line. All the Galway trains and Westport trains went through Mullingar, all the mail trains as well.
So in effect, Tullamore was a kind of a branch line, or
a branch line. Yeah. In the early 60s, trains just run from Athlone to Portarlington. The Tullamore and Clara passengers would have to change at Portarlington to get a train to Dublin, get the Cork train to Dublin from Portarlington. And the same would apply on the return. And there'd be passengers waiting at Portarlington to get back to Clara and Tullamore and Athlone, and the engine had just one cab. It'd go in on a turntable at Portarlington and it'd be face back for Tullamore.
And that's a view there, Charlie, of the station. Would that be 1960s or would it be?
That'd be the 1960s.
Yeah.
The long road where the trains, the goods trains would come in. We see they used to load B on the where the bank is,
Yes.
and then there's a grain. That was a cover for loading grain.
Yes.
That building, and then there was a cattle pen the far side of that for pinning in cattle when they be taken off taken out of the wagons.
And would the cattle be from the fair days or?
Well, they used to be from the fair days, and then the dealers, it'd be Cleary's, Mick Cleary, he'd be buying in wen and young cattle, and Brazils and Tormies. They'd be buying young cattle, and if it weren't collected immediately, to be put into the pen, and there was water and all laid on for them.
And Clearys were associated with the milk afterwards.
There were.
And Tormies with the butchers, I suppose.
Tormies with the butchers, yes.
And we've another view here now, which is slightly later, the more holiday type thing. That would be 1980s, I suppose.
I'd say that'd be the 80s.
And the train was there a particular type? Was that any particular type of train, or was it?
Yeah, it was a Mark II, I think they called it.
Yeah, well, of course, we have the second platform in there.
Yeah, at the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you have the bridge, which I think.
Yes.
Did that come from some nearby town? Or?
That came from Roscrea.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, I remember the Saturday it arrived in. I was came on duty at 1:30, and Joe Conway was going off, and we had every part of the station was filled with the bridge, and there was a crane and parts of the bridge, and I had to clear it straight away. There was 2 passenger trains due to be crossed at Tullamore. I had my work cut out to clear the 2 running lines for the passenger trains. I had to get in all the bridge and the crane and all, get it in on the sidings.
Of course, yeah.
I just barely had enough room to get them clear so I could deal with the 2 passenger trains.
And there is another view of with that. What type of machine was that?
That was a packer for packing under the tracks.
Oh, for
it used to be all done by hand. And
would these be the stones, you mean? Or,
packing in the ballast.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It used to be all done. The Permaway staff would jack up the rail and pack underneath. It was a slow job, but this machine
was able to do it.
Takes levels and done all that work.
And I see there's the nice new warehouse and that on the left, but the cement silo was
there was
there.
There was 400 ton cement every month was taken into the silo, and
that's it there now on the left, I think. Yeah,
that's right, and that's the bulk cement silo that used to house 1,000 ton, and there'd be 400 ton going into that every day. There was big during the boom, the building boom. There was big demand on cement.
And who would be delivering that?
Dan Morrissey, Carlo call. Maybe he'd do 3 runs a day, and Laois Concrete would do 3 runs. Our local ready mix and Spollins would collect cement as well, and Banner Concrete collect a few load up and down as well. And
so it was mainly wholesalers or large scale users. It wasn't builders like they didn't.
No,
No.
No, the builders dealt with the bag cement.
Yes,
yes.
And the Tullamore station had a good reputation for tidiness and winning awards, and so
Yes. Well, when I started the station, when I'd finished in the goods store, maybe when all the lorries and the horses and drays be all loaded, I'd have to spend some time maybe sowing trees and sowing flowers, and Joe Craig would have me at all that type of work.
yes. Well, of course, you had to be doing something in your
Yeah,
free time. You
well,
couldn't be left be doing nothing.
yes, there'd be plenty of work to be done, and we won the first station award in 1968.
That was in, but you moved to Geashill after that. They must have
I
wanted you to tidy up out there then.
Danny O'Leary were in the Tullamore, and Geashill and Clara were in the Dublin area, and Danny O'Leary was the Dublin dairy inspector, and he'd come down, and any time he'd meet me, he'd take me up to the signal box and he'd give me a rundown on the rules and regulations and all that. And
Yeah,
so,
we're going to be looking at that in a minute.
yes,
But to tell me, I saw something on the papers about the idea that Geashill Station might be reopened to service that part of the county. Now, there's a nice picture on the left there of the station
yes,
when it was in use fully in the early 1900s. And I think you may correct me that it finished up around 1960 as a passenger, or was it later?
yes. In December 1963 or 62, it was closed for 63, and remained opened in the signal box stayed open for crossing trains. There was 2 platforms in Geashill, and it was only a station in Offaly with 2 platforms at the time.
Yes.
And it was a busy station for beet loading, and
And
it was
this
big.
is you out there with your mother. You must have invited her out
That's right.
to have a cup of tea.
Yeah.
How long
on
were you
Sunday,
in Geashill?
I went to work in Geashill in September 1969, and I finished up in December 1975.
Yeah, 6
It was
years,
that was the 75. That was when it became a main line, and so there was there was 16 trains a day up and down. It was a big change from the way it was when it was a branch line.
So really that changeover was
That was
crucial for Tullamore.
a big change.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that lady then on the right was in Geashill, or in the Mealhans rather, which is
Oh,
close
Mrs.
by.
Rooney.
Yeah,
Yes.
she was there for many years as a gatekeeper.
She was a gatekeeper. I used to have to, when a train had be left for Tarlington, I'd have to call her and tell her the train was left for Tarlington.
And you do that by telephone?
By telephone, and when I'd leave Geashill, then I'd have to give her another call and tell her the train was gone on to her.
I see.
Yes.
And the phones worked and all that, I suppose.
The phones worked.
Yes.
If not, I'd have to give the driver a number flag, to just a caution,
yes.
to keep a lookout. If I was unable to make contact with the level crossing, I'd have to give either stop the train or give the driver a yellow flag, a caution.
Now you mentioned Geashill closing. I know Banagher, I think, and the second station in Clara and the Burr station also closed about this time.
It all closed at that time.
As part of some cutback measures.
Cutbacks, yes.
That's the Banagher station there on the right. I think that's where the marina is now in Banagher.
Yes.
And the Clara station, of course, is still in use.
Still in use, yes.
But the one to Streamstown,
Clara, it was a fine house on it.
And we picked up that report from the papers in December 62, I think, of the last train for Burr. and for Banagher.
for Banagher, yes.
Now, you mentioned Ted O'Brien there. He was the station master before you arrived.
He was
And-
before I arrived, but he was still doing part-time at the
Oh,
station.
was he?
Yes.
Yeah, he's there in that picture, inside beside the television, on the
Yes.
right there.
Yes, a great GA man, and his son Dermot played GA for Tullamore.
And he was succeeded by Mr. Craig, we always called him.
Mr. Craig, yes.
Yeah, he was here nearly 50 years, wasn't he? He died a few years ago, I think.
That's right. He
Not
was
long ago.
around for a long time.
Yeah.
He was a nice man.
And he's there presiding over some works that
Some
were going
works
on.
that was going, they were putting down cables along the platform at the time, yeah.
Now, when you joined up, there was a lot of staff at the railway station, and you might like to mention some of them now.
Yes. Well, Jimmy Flynn, he used to drive, when the tractors came, he drove a tractor, and he drove the horses when to do holiday relief, and he done work on the lorries as well. He came from Ballycumber.
And you had a Mr. Riley there.
Yeah, Paddy Riley.
Riley and
yes.
Mr. Lowbridge.
Yeah, you have Liam Harvey. Well, he passed away there a couple of years ago, but he was on the traffic that time, and he went to the road fray shortly after that as a helper on a lorry. And Willie O'Reilly was the next man there. He used to do the Banagher service.
Oh, yes.
Then
And then you mentioned Mr.
Billy-
Flynn and Mr. Sheehy.
Billy Harvey, Billy was the foreman at the time, and Seamus Sheehy, he came from Kerry. He was working in Tullamore.
So there's about 12 people in that, and was that it, or were there more people?
Oh, there was a lot more. It was about 60. Joe Craig was telling me at that year it was 67 on the payroll with
67.
yes, with lorry drivers and permanent waste like workers on the line and all the helpers, and there was a lot of work going on in the station.
Yeah.
And indeed, in Derry service opened around that time as well. It used to be deliveries from Houston goods, and it was transferred down to Tullamore. We'd have to load a lorry for Eden Derry every morning.
So really, there must have been a lot of emphasis on the goods as opposed to the passengers, would you say?
Oh yes, there was very few passengers, very few people travelling at the time. The busiest train was the evening train. They used to call it the boat train.
Well, just looking at the rail timetable there for 67, it's hard to read it from here, but it looks like there was only 3 or 4 trains in the day back in the 60s.
Yes.
And it expanded in the 70s.
It expanded a bit in 1967. The Connemara from Galway, they stopped it in Tullamore. Well, I was just looking at the timetable there. It was just stopped for 1 minute. To pick up, and there was no parcels or anything allowed to be put on that train.
And were you looking at the first train in those days might be at after 9 o'clock?
Oh yes, the first train to Dublin would be 9:30. Yes,
And you probably wouldn't get in for 2 hours, I suppose, or an hour and a half.
that's right. To be much slower than now.
And I see there in in 79, there seemed to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think, trains at that stage. But again, the first was not until 9:25.
Yeah, it was about 1980 when the early bird started, Monday only.
Monday only. Well,
Yeah.
people must have been staying up then all week. They weren't coming down.
The students would all go back on Sunday night.
Yes.
The trains would be really busy on Sunday night.
And there's, I see there was a the early trains were chopped for a while in that report of 1975. But how many people would be travelling in a day at that time, going up to Dublin, say? Would it be 1,000 or 500 or 200?
Not back that time though. We'll say in the 70s, what be about maybe be about 10 or 15 on the morning trains for Dublin, and like the people, the money was scarce enough them years until things started to pick up a bit more.
But you had those excursions, but of course they weren't that common. But Salt's factory, I suppose, and Goodbodies would have a day, would have an excursion.
They'd have an excursion down to Tullamore and
there might be
up to
500 or 600, would there?
Or there would, up the Bray, and then of course the GA, like when Offaly be playing in Croke Park, to be special trains laid on. Say in 1961 when Offaly got into the All Ireland, there was a big, there was extra trains put on for that match.
Well, I see that report there of 75 indicates that we were cut back from 6 to 4 daily, with one additional train on a Friday evening. I suppose matching the train going up on Sunday night.
Yes.
In terms of civil servants and students coming home.
Yes.
And you had a particular job looking after the signals until 1984. There they are there, those levers.
Yes.
What was their function?
Well, their function was to, you'd operate the pints, the red levers was the signals, and the black ones was the making the pints. So when you'd make the pints, unless the pints was right, you wouldn't be able to get a signal for it, for the trains.
And that stopped in 1984. What was the reason?
Well, that all changed in 1984 because it came under the CTC, all control from Connolly Station.
Ah, yes.
Yes, down as far as Athlone.
Now, of course, I suppose that has ominous sounds like the novel itself, 1984, but CTC. But of course, it wasn't that technological.
Central Track Control. Over 500,000 worth of equipment went into every station along the way between Tullamore and Dublin. Tullamore was a fringe signal box.
And just going back there, what was that box there on the left?
That was, it's still there. It's an emergency control panel. I worked that for a year after the signal box up at the station closed. Yes.
Yeah. And that cable that children used to watch, you would hand that to the driver of the train. What was that about?
That was a staff. Say if I had a train going down to Clara, I'd look, is the line clear? I give for a passenger train 1 pause 3 on there was a plunger, and I give the bell code for the train, and Clara would release one of those for me, be taken out of an instrument, ETS instrument.
I see. Yeah, they always look fascinating to us as children to see this.
The driver couldn't proceed unless he had one of those.
That,
yes.
Interesting. And of course, when all this was going on, we had no real telephone system, and there was only a box up in the station in those days.
Yeah, just they had an internal phones, so to Geashill and Clara, and when I was in Geashill, I was in contact with the signalman in Portarlington. It was internal phones, and
well, this was a public phone.
That The public phone was, there was no public phone in the station at the time.
This was
Just
before mobile phones.
just
and
in
all that.
there was only a phone in the station master's office, and when the station master's office be closed in the evening, and there'd be no phone available.
A nice one, yeah.
Yes.
Now there was a lot of great events. I'm not expecting you to remember this, but that's just thinking back. That's when the officers in the Irish Volunteers were heading off to the Western Front in 1914 as the war was about to start. You can see the jail in the background, and all the men in the regiment there are assembled to see off the officers who were leaving for the battles in France. And the pictures, unfortunately, are from newspapers. And then you had groupings of, say, emigrants. This was Father Aloysius Craven, who was out in New York later, from a well-known Rahan family, and all his friends gathered to say goodbye to him in 1929.
Yes.
Can you remember any episodes like that in your time? Whole families leaving, or being wished, being sent to being greeted on arrival or departure at the railway station.
Yes, we experienced a lot of that. When someone maybe going to work in England, there'd be the family at all
Assemble at the station.
See them off. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. You mentioned that. There's Salts now. Of course, that was beside the railway station there at Kilcrutton, and they probably got equipment down from time to time, but they're big users of the goods end of things.
Oh yes, quite a good bit material used to come down for salts, and then they'd send off a lot of the yarn as well. The lorry come over, maybe 2 or 3 runs over to the station, and maybe fill up 3 wagons, and for Cork or Sunbeam in Cork.
So really, you had a door-to-door service, did you? Did you collect stuff at the other end, or did people have to bring it to the railway station?
Well, we used to collect with the horse and dray down in maybe Irish Mist and Tullamore Geashill, and they'd bring up loads to the station, and of course the wagons would have to be sealed, and if there was custom paper, if they were for export, custom papers would have to be examined and see everything was in order. And
yeah, it was quite a complicated thing, wasn't it?
Yes.
And then you had the very big days, like 61 All Ireland, and this one is in 72.
72, that was a big...
I suppose you were up there that evening.
I was. And 71 and 72 was great days for Offaly.
Yeah, I can see Father Galuli there.
Father Galuli.
And Martin.
Willie Bryan and Tony McTeague. He was the captain that year. Yes.
I think that's Bunny Martin out there on the right.
Yes.
I don't know who's on the left with the glasses and the college tie.
Yeah.
And I wonder who's the young lad with the cap. Maybe some of our viewers can tell us that.
Yes.
And then you had other days of special events. Like this train came from Waterford and was heading on to Belfast, a steam train. That was back in 91, I think. Yeah, 91.
Yeah, that was the Railway Record Society have steam trains every year. They'd maybe do a run to Galway or Westport or...
Well, those steam trains, they were operated on coal, were they?
Coal.
Because I remember as a child when we'd go on school tours, you'd of course have your white shirt. And then when you'd get home, your white shirt collar would be black from looking out the window.
Yes, it'd be a lot.
Yeah. And that finished up in the 60s, did it, that type of train?
Well, they got 500 new engines, new diesel engines in 1955, and that replaced a lot of the
A lot of
steam,
the steam trains, yeah.
steam
But
trains.
not entirely, because
No, there
I
was
think I remember some of them into the
probably a
60s.
few of them in use there
Yeah.
for after that. Yes.
And that's just a note about that train that arrived down. It was actually 350 railway buffs were on that one. But then there's another one that came in from Belfast, some kind of suburban train.
Oh yes, that one came for it was a big final up in with Northern Ireland teams up in O'Connor's Park.
You see, yeah,
that
there was
Sunday,
600 or 700 on that trip.
Yes, there was a big.
And our Brian Cowan was our Minister for
Yes,
Transport at
that
that
was
time.
The new Japanese trains was the first Monday morning, the maiden voyage for it.
Yeah, and I see you're there, and Mr.
Yeah.
Craig is there, and two other men from
Yes.
the business.
Yes,
there
Brian
is-
travelled up on it that Monday morning.
Oh, there's a man called Stephen Moore was in that picture. Maybe he was from the north or from. And there was a Peter McCann there.
Yeah,
and
they're
Colin McNulty.
they came down on that train.
Yes.
Yeah, that Northern Ireland train.
And
yeah.
there's a colour shot of it. That was in
Yeah.
'94. You see, the new church in Dora was just about finished.
Yes.
Then you had you've had big groups for matches and that. Anything in particular stand out? That's a rugby one, I think, for the Leinsters.
Yeah, there was big groups, and of course the Offaly teams used to travel up by rail for the All Ireland final.
Did they?
Yes.
Yeah.
There'd be great excitement, and it'd come down
On
Monday evening.
yeah.
Then if the win or lose, the won most times.
So really, you were in a position where you met so many people from the town going up or coming down,
yes.
and buying their tickets and getting off the trains, that you must have known everyone in town.
I knew everyone back them years in town. Sadly, nearly them all has passed away now, but I still they live in my memory.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And there was people, I suppose, who were regular
Yes.
travellers every day or every week. Just looking at that rugby club, I believe they went directly out to Lansdowne Road that day. They must have gone through the tunnel, did they?
Went through the tunnel, to get
Yeah.
into Connolly Station and out to Lansdowne.
And besides these big groups, did you have any special celebrity type ones? Like, did the presidents ever come through Tullamore Geashill?
Yes,
Tullamore?
in Geashill, President De Valera travelled down to Galway twice while I was there. I can recall the Sunday morning, the presidential train was arrived in, and I signalled it into the starting signal, and I collected the staff off of the driver, and I got ready I put it through the instrument and signalled that it was the train from Tullamore from Galway was due to cross as well. So the president's train was there 5 minutes or more before the Tullamore train arrived. So I had a good view of the president's train and a good view of the president. And when I went over then with the staff, I gave it to the driver, and the president was standing he let down the window and he was standing there. I spoke to him, and so another Sunday morning as well, a year or so after that, he travelled as well to Galway. And I remember Oscar Childers, he travelled twice as well down to Galway, and the last president was Cathal O'Donnell. he travelled through Geashill as well, the same procedure. I had the train, stopped the down train to cross the up train from Galway.
Yeah.
And then in Tullamore, President Patrick Hillary travelled to Galway. The last president to use the presidential train was Mary Robson. She travelled down to her own county, Ballina, and she was the last president to use the presidential train because it was taken out of service for safety reasons after that.
Well, that's a good note, Charlie, on which to end this discussion. I want to thank you very much for coming in today to give us your memories of working at the Geashill and Tullamore railway stations. And I hope we'll see you back here for another chat about Tullamore on another day. And sincere thanks to you for all the work you've put into this.
And thanks, Michael. I'm delighted to be able to give an account of my time on the railway.
So good. So see you all, folks, on another day. Thank you.